Building a bandsaw table improves the capabilities of your bandsaw by letting you rip, resaw, and do other good stuff. And what if I told you I could do it at under 15 bucks? Well, keep watching this video to find out. The materials needed are pretty simple. 1-inch construction screws. These are zinc coated, about $1 something at Home Depot. I used that 3-foot. That 3-foot piece of walnut is a 3/4 inch square rod. What we're going to use to build the runners. Now I didn't use any of the smaller bits or the angle, just because I just didn't. But you'll see. And a big piece of MDF. That's a 2-foot by 4-foot piece of MDF. Now I'm just taking a look at my bandsaw to kind of see what's up. So as you can see, the front edge is pretty darn small, and the outfeed part not going to work for any piece really larger than maybe 2 feet. So the reason we're going to build this table is so we can have additional capabilities, like being able to make circle jigs, rip fence, all kinds of good stuff. So let's get started. First, take that big 3-foot, 3/4 inch square bit and just put it in the channel. Now I had to measure out my channel, and it was 3/4 of an inch, so make sure to get whatever stock it is. But as you see, it fits in perfectly and slides just fine. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to put the thing in there, take a pencil and mark where the top of the table is, so we know where to rip this piece of wood. Because we're going to rip it using the bandsaw in order to make it, because why not? We're making something for the bandsaw, might as well rip it with a bandsaw and put a little X right down where we gotta take care of business. The first step to be able to figure out where we're gonna center our board is figuring out, okay, well, how far in do I need to go for this blade to work? Because we're gonna need to saw the square stock in half, or close to half-ish, so that way we have that as our flush runners. So in order to do that, I'm just marking a center line for where the blade is going to lie. Now, we're going to build a jig so that way that square piece doesn't move around on us and we can rip it perfect, because I don't have a fence yet. So I just grabbed some old MDF they had laying around from the workbench project, and we're just going to screw a couple of pieces together so that way that square rod is not going to move and it'll go 100% true. So to just countersink a couple, you don't have to countersink it, but I always do on these kind of woods just because I don't want it breaking. So the first part doesn't really matter. Then you square it up like I got it right there, so that way you have a nice square bit. It's gonna be a little tight, but you can always sand the inside of the MDF just so that way you can give it a little bit of play. But there's the jig right there, and it works like a beast. And I actually went through and wrote what the heck it was, so I knew what it was. Now on the bandsaw, check this. You get to see some cutting for once. It's centered up perfectly right on the line, and just watch that baby go. Oh, son, it's going perfect. By using the jig, I just took a bar clamp, put it on the right side there, and it held like a chief. It wasn't moving anywhere. So we're going to make this cut. It comes out, and we're going to have a perfect. It kind of bound up just a little bit near the end. I think there was a small little warp in it, but I'm having to kind of push it through. But another nice thing about using that jig is I'm not going to get any trouble, except for that last little inch or so, but who cares? Now we need to figure out from the back of the bandsaw where it's going to touch to the front of the channel, how big is it? Because that will actually determine where we place those running guides for the underside of our bandsaw sled. And as we measured it out, 16 3/8 is how we have to go about it. Now I decided to measure it that way because I wanted to make sure that I was as tight as possible to the tower part of my bandsaw. Because I wanted to have that other half of the band, like the up part of the bandsaw, kind of supporting the left side, so that way it's nice and squished in there. So I put the hardwood runner deal on the right side of the line, so that way everything was super clean and good. And if it's a little too tight, we can always kind of make it work with a plane. But as you see, I had to add a little bit to the front, because in order for it to go through the bandsaw clean, you need to have the runner go all the way to the front of the board. Otherwise, it can start getting wobbly on the first 6 inches, so bad idea. Anyway, just sanded it flush, so no big deal there. Now we got to push this guy through. Now what I suggest you do is be real gentle, because it's going to take a little bit of force. As you see, I mean, it's taking a little bit of force because the thing was a little bit warped. So just be real careful about it, because we're going to true it up in a bit. But it was real tight on the left side. It just needed a little bit of time to work it through. Mark the underside of your bandsaw table with a pencil, because this is the best way, because you already have the sled up there. this is the easiest time for it. And besides, why even measure? If you can make it so that way it's as tight as possible, just put your stock on the outside of those lines and bada boom, bada bing, you've got the best fit possible, because we don't want that sled moving around on us. So the lines, as you can see, is the box. Just put your stock on the outside of the line, because we're trying to squeeze all that stuff in there. I just was cutting the other half, because remember we had another half of those runners that never got on the table. Well, that's perfect, because these aren't going in the groove, and so I don't really care. So that one on the left side is the one facing the blade side. That one is the one on the outfeed table. Don't worry that it's a full piece, because we're just going to shove it through and the bandsaw will cut that right in half. No problem. So let's get that thing back on there. As you see, you have to kind of jump it up just a little bit, but there, it's totally in there. Now what I did is I went out and thought, I just kind of noticed that some of my 1-inch screws kind of impacted a little bit on the MDF surface. So I put on a dust mask and just went there and just knocked down the tops. There's like little tips that popped out and I just want to make sure that everything was nice and sanded. Now I have ventilation, the doors are open, so I don't have to worry about the MDF getting everywhere. Normally you wouldn't want to do that. I put a little chamfer on all the edges, so that way they weren't so hard, because I don't really want those to be real pointy. And eventually what we'll do is with this top is either coat it or do something with it. But I decided in order to make my fence, I already had laying around a 4.5 foot expandable guide thing. So it's one of these you can pick up for about 20-30 bucks at a Lowe's, and it's spectacular. It goes the whole length, because it's 4.5 feet. It'll go the whole way, and look at that. Like a glove, you have yourself a perfect fence. The only one you'll have to do is to measure to make sure everything's nice and true. Is just take 2 measurements, one on the each end, and then you'll have it totally set. There you go, there's a fence. Let's build something with this guy. So I thought the perfect first project would be a set of push sticks, because the last thing I want to do is go through my bandsaw and not have a push stick. So I just roughed out a basic shape on the bandsaw. Now we're going to go through, we got to rip this in half, because this is a 2x4 that I then had to make into a push stick. So let's go ahead and, hey, get to work, dude. Yeah, make sure to measure that in half before we do anything. Okay, even though it's a 1.5 inch board, it's good practice still to measure, and just make sure to put a mark at 3/4 right down the middle. In order to make our cool impromptu fence work, you need to make sure to put in what is 3/4, and then bring your fence to it. Now you have to do it you have to measure it in a couple different places to make sure it doesn't warp. That's just the nature of using this kind of rigged system, but generally after you do your measurements and everything checks out, you are solid. So we can start ripping this guy right in half. First thing, take your blade guard and make sure it's just clearing your piece, just like normal. Make sure to check your operating manual and such, but I don't think that's pretty much of an issue for people who actually own a bandsaw. I just kind of got a little bit wanting to cut something, so I just cut that. I didn't know if I needed a push stick kind of thing or whatnot, but anyway, I put steady pressure against the fence and down, so that way I was able to hold the piece nicely and just pull her right through. Look at that. It was absolutely perfect. The fence worked great. Split it straight down the middle, and you can drum a little bit with your sticks. And in order for me to hang these things up, I want to make sure I put them on the wall. Figured might as well be a great idea to stick a hole. No, that's a bad idea. You need something not to... No, that's a stupid idea. Now put the hole in there so you get both of them, and I still blow out the other one. And I split it. But you know what? It's a 2x4. It'll work. No problem. And this is the time where I really wish I had bench dogs. A lot. So I might have to do an improvement to the workbench to allow me to have some bench dogs, and also to get all that paint and stuff that comes on 2x4s off of the push sticks so they look kind of nice. So now they're nice and pretty. So if you guys really enjoyed having a bandsaw in your shop, you're gonna want to build one of these rigs for being able, because I tell you, having a bandsaw fence is spectacular for being able to resaw wood to make it the right size you want, be able to take big logs, turn them into smaller ones. More importantly, it gives you a lot more functionality. On this kind of table, you could drill a hole for a dowel right to the right of the blade and make perfect circles using a circle jig. There's so much you can do with a fence like this. Not to mention the fact you got a ton of more real estate in order to support your pieces, so they're gonna be nice and firm. So if that was cool for you guys, I know it's a little departure from my gaming videos, but don't worry about it, it's all good. I do woodworking on the side too now, just something fun to do with my hands. So if you liked it, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.